Alright everyone, welcome back. Day 2 session 4 for our entry to IT. We were navigating very briefly on how businesses work, why they exist, what is it that they do. We then took a look into why there's a need to be able to measure the wealth they're generating and also be able to predict growth using the data that is existing. And being able to predict, and this word predict is becoming very key in today's IT world team. This session that I'm doing is all about how you can survive and thrive in today's IT world and tomorrow's IT world. So focus a lot on a lot of keywords that I use, and I want you to maybe repeat these sessions a few times and write down all that I'm saying as notes. It is really something that once fundamentally clear, you could expand what you're doing accordingly. So this is day 2 session 3 and 4 in the same document as of now. So I'm going to put it there. And what we also went through is how Excel sheets stop at a certain level when complexities increase, when we need to be able to collaborate, share, and do things together, or when it comes to privacy or a trust factor as to who should see what. Other keyword theme, which is rarely used, and the statement that comes up, from a lot of people in the IT world is trust me. That those two words are very rarely used. That word trust me is based on a human calculation. But IT wants to work on predictability. So the predictability they want to retain as a process. So we will talk a lot about process workflows, how we do some use case diagrams, how do we build applications basically. Then we're going to move into automation testing. That's more about why we need to be more efficient and release these applications faster and of much better quality. Now, great. So for the day 2 session 4, we were talking about the pain problem requirement. For me, all these three are the same. So for some users, it could be pain. For some, it could be a problem that just not solve. The others, it's a requirement where we are expecting something better to happen. Now, I want to take a case study for this. Okay. Now, to be able to deliver this, I want to do a case study. And I'll tell you the background for this case study. Let's talk about a business, right? Let's give it a name. Let me tab this a little further. Okay, business name. Sudo. So I'll just say sudo. All right. Sudo is definitely wrongly spelled. I rarely use. So is this the right word? Yep. Now I want to talk about what is the type of this business. I'll use additional tabs so there's clarity in how we put this. It is people consulting. All right. And let me explain the business to you, team, as I write it in the documentation. It is very easy for me to verbally speak and explain everything. Lot more time consuming and effort to speak and type and document everything. The reason I'm putting this effort of documentation is because it is essential, right? So whatever we're gonna talk about, let us document it. We are in a live case study, and this is not just a sample case study. Okay. The business which is doing people consulting is primarily saying that they have a set of consultants. So let's expand this for everyone's clarity. Consultants distributed worldwide, working from home on, let's say, in this case, on mobile app development. Oopsie, no. I want to align text, so I'm trying to use tabs to be able to do that, and that's why it's better to use bullets sometimes, but I don't know if bullets will help me too much. How about putting it in a table out here too? I think that will keep things well aligned. Okay, insert table. For now I just need 2 columns, but I'll need a lot of rows. Maybe, I don't know, 10. Perfect. Now here is a table that we are inserting into a Word doc, and it is all about content presentation and organization. That is what we're trying to do. Let me see if I do a copy paste, will it put it? No, I don't think it will organize it nicely. No, see, just put it in one cell. So let's do it. I'll leave the first one for a title, maybe for the column. We're trying to describe the business, right? So this is description or details. Let's say about business name, and this is details. So doing, sorry, little time consuming copy paste job. Let's do it fast as possible. And then okay, cool. Maybe another 30 seconds, and we'll have the basic thing ready. Team, I'm very deliberately going slow. Can I get a feedback quickly from the audience on the speed at which I'm going? It is entry level, so I'm slowed down, but do you feel you're stuck anywhere? So I've selected the first 2 columns, and I just want to give it a background color. Maybe I'll just stick with the same blue. About details. Oh, come on. Let's bold the. Okay. Now I don't need this. All the details that we want to furnish for this business, we're going to put it out here. Quickly going to look at the comments for the question. Andre, you have difficulty seeing the video. Is it a streaming issue? And may I know which country you're from? Sorry, 1 minute, team. I see, Italy, but it stops time streaming. Okay, just go back and watch the video and see if the videos play better. Sorry about that, but I'm moving pretty much slow under the screen itself. So let's see. Oh, that should be fine. Okay, there you go. Consultants distributed worldwide. How many consultants? So now we will get into details of it. Number of consultants. Let's say 15. Working from home on mobile app development. Okay. Expanded business details. Not the right word, but still can make sense. Number of consultants is 15. And now let's talk about the org structure. CEO. Okay. Some SS. Okay, just keeping the name. Now, if I have 15 consultants team who are working on mobile app development in a distributed environment. So let me give you the picture of it. All right, what are we trying to talk on it? It's going to be a very small organization. There's a CEO, all right, and then there is a project manager, and we have a finance admin. Okay, now the scenario is primarily this way, team. I need a better mouse for sure. I have consultants, all these consultants, 1, C2, all the way to C15. Okay, now the problem statement will come up slowly, team. Let me tell you the scenario. Project manager is controlling the deliverables that are happening from these consultants. All right, so all these consultants, whatever they're doing from a work perspective, a project manager is controlling, and he or she is reporting the same to the CEO. Now, what does this finance admin do? Small organization, right? So that is why we don't have a chief financial officer or a vice president finance. We just have only these many people. So we have 15 employees, 2 at management level, 1 CEO, 18 people overall. I'll go back here a second. Org size 18 employees. All right. Now, what does the finance admin require? Project manager needs to know about work. Did you do good work? Did you do timely work? Does the client like your work? And so on. The finance admin has to get details about how long you worked, on what you worked, so that they can create an invoice, which is basically used to make payments and send it to the clientele. Now, for these 15 consultants, let us assume we have 3 customers. Okay, I already used consultant 1 to consultant 15. I can't use C again here. Let's say this customers A, B, and C. All right. Some of them are working with A, some of them working with B, some of them are working with C. However we want to distribute. Now, the finance admin's role is to know which ones are working for which customer, know exactly how many hours to bill and submit them. What happens in a consulting world, team? Consulting world is talking about people consulting, where we get a job for $50 an hour that is paid to us as an end consultant, but there's someone in between who's assisting, who's brokering that deal. That person takes $10 an hour additional, and the client end of it is actually paying about $70. So there's layers that's getting cut into between. That's the business model. Business model is revenue model. The reason I'm going very in deep, team, into this as a case study is we will talk about how requirements are gathered, how does a business analyst come, where does things get heavy. So we're going to talk a lot about it. Revenue model is percentage on total invoice. So there is a payment that we have to make to the consultants. There are payments that we have to get from the customers, and we have to process them. That's the finance admin's primary portfolio. Now comes the business challenge, right? What is a business challenge? We're not talking project manager's business challenge right now, but a finance admin. It can also help the project manager. One is task tracking. Second is time tracking. What does it mean? When a consultant submits something we call as a time sheet, which talks about what they did in that 40 hours in that week, it basically has to be approved by the customer that, okay, this is agreeable time and not. This whole process is not just between employees and the consultants, and the owner of the organization. There is also a lot of linkage between the customers going through all the way and covering. This becomes a complete cycle. Now, in this whole cycle, the challenge is to give very transparent information to the customer. Client is looking at, I'm sorry, I don't want to disturb the diagram. Let me take a screenshot of this. Why is it so slow? Okay, there you go. Full screen. Thank you. Right there. So this transparent is looking at, is basically asking the following questions. Right. One, how do we know that the individual actually worked on a task? What if they are working on multiple projects at the same time? Can you visually show us their work progress along with time and tasks? So these are the kind of questions that are coming up from this organization team. Again, very critical for you to understand this, because we're going to be developing an application in Java early next week based on this. All right, but how do we actually try and get the problem, and what do we do next? So the basic business challenge that we're seeing is task tracking, time tracking, but more importantly, trust tracking. There is a lack of visibility. Why? Because all consultants are working from home. So not only the project manager, where is that? I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not opening. Did it open? No. Still loading. So the work that is done by the consultants is being measured by the project manager, but the challenge is more for the finance admin, where the invoices are not getting approved and there's no way for them to track. That's a problem statement where there is a constant thought process of stakeholders to improve business. So the finance admin would go and ask the CEO, should I make some application like that? And then it comes into something called as a requirement document. Now, at a high level, what are the requirements? We need a time tracker, task tracker, and how do we do a trust tracker? And for that comes how we develop that solution. Okay, that is where we sit and get into a strategic discussion. Now, how do we make the clients trust in us? The CEO, the finance admin, and the project manager sitting and talking about it. And the solutions that came up is maybe we should ask everyone to not work from home, but come to the centers and work. But then that is ruled out because the skills that we have and the locations that they're working from are rigid, they cannot move from there. And it is a two-way street where it is both beneficial for the consultant to be working from home and also for the organizations. They don't have too much of infrastructure and monitoring cost. Maybe other solutions like everyone takes screenshots of the work and sends it, or videotape, or use a webcam. So if we use a webcam, unless there is a conference, I don't think the privacy of the consultant should be disturbed. So let us not use a webcam. That was ruled out. Let us not put them onto such kind of a scrutiny because maybe there are other options. What about if the consultant himself takes screenshots and sends it? But then the benefit of doubt is with whom? And hence we cannot give that opportunity to the consultant's hand. And primarily comes a solution, a possible solution, saying that let us build a desktop application that is installed on every consultant's machine. All right. Now, this is the high level, but what is it that it does? One, consultant logs in with her credentials. Onto this desktop app team. Okay, so I'm just going to call this as DA. Then I'm just using consultant, just a CNS. Enters a task and clicks on start. Enters or selects. Okay, see where we're getting more specific. This is very deep, not very detailed team, somewhere mid-level, but just 3-4 points, and then we'll talk about what happens, who comes next, whose role is this, who will develop this, who needs to understand. We'll talk a lot about that team. And this is selects a task and clicks on start. So you understand, right? They log in into a desktop application, they'll click on start, time tracking starts immediately. Screenshots randomly at different time intervals. Consultant stops the task. Consultant submits it for approval. So primarily, it's a desktop application which is trying to give that clarity to this problem statement. What is the problem statement? How do we know that the individual actually worked on a task? What if they are working on multiple projects at the same time? Can you visually show us their work progress along with time and tasks? Now we're talking about an application that is going to revolve around making this happen. This is a high-level requirement, and what we need to then generate is something called as a functional requirement specification, or FRT. FRS is functional requirement specifications, or documentation. Functional requirement design or documentation, either way. This holds as to what is needed. Basic question that gets answered is what should the end user look at and work on. Little stupid English statement. I wish I could put it better. Who is the end user team? When we build anything, the one who's using it at the end is an end user. If you talk about a cell phone, we are the owners, we are the end users. Laptops, we are the end users. If we're talking about businesses, there are multiple layers to it. One partner after the other. And finally, there's an end user to that service. So functional requirement specifications talks about what should the end user look at and work on. It doesn't talk about things like technical design, or sometimes it can even start with technical requirement. It can be very, what you're seeing is basic level concepts, right? We're touching upon what is what. This talks about how to solve the above need. Okay, there's a requirement. What should the end user is specified here. And for this, it is basically questions on technology, hosting, deployment, all right. End user, of course, everything is end user. Demographics, like how many users, where, all this are needed to be able to answer this. So when I say technology, the question is things like, is it Java or C#, or use web. We're talking desktop applications, so I really can't do with a web based on it. It could be, if even there are, I don't know, how about Excel itself? Can that do? To what extent? No, it cannot. So these decisions as to what is to use, what we cannot use, how we need to use, and so on come into it. Then comes database. Hosting is local, so we need to talk about what database do we need to apply. This entire thinking is done by the architect or someone technically minimum. Okay, they need to understand both aspects. Now, who does an FRS and FRD? So far, this came from the finance admin business challenge. Okay, this came from finance admin. And then requirements were given by the finance admin. Solution was proposed by the board of stakeholders. Okay, they said, okay, now let's look at something like this if we can build. Now, who does the FRS and FRD? Who prepares these requirements in a very detailed manner? This individual must have a very good knowledge about the requirements that are arising from the business end. So in this diagram, a project manager may know certain of what they're doing. A finance admin knows the exact requirements. You need a business analyst team at this point. A business analyst who takes this very simple requirement and creates something very strong, where there is no two ways to understand it, ensures that every specific requirement has been fitted in correctly in the right words in English, creates diagrams, helps to get some screenshots and everything generated as to how that application will look. Then the technical requirement design is getting now into where I need to know, to make this happen, what technologies to use. Just a plan there. Where should I deploy it? How should I do? High level plan. Let's come up with something like an architecture diagram. Then comes your actual development. Development or build. These days, they're just not using a word called developing application. They're saying we're building applications. Developing is a part of the overall life cycle, but we want to build them. Now, in build is the actual coding component, where a developer sit down and implement the entire FRD into a product, software product. And in our case, we know very clearly it's a desktop. And this is, of course, done by your dev team. Now comes where the product is ready, but before we deploy it, we want to do certain amount of quality assurance, where once we give it to the end users, we will be able to get to understand what's happening, QA or automation engineers. Right. Now, this is where end-to-end product testing is performed, keeping the end user in mind. I think it always belongs to the end user. Whatever we do, it is the end point is the end user for us. Now, while we are performing these tasks, we are identifying issues and getting them resolved by the dev before it reaches the end user. This whole concept of you tell me what to do, let's document it, let's find the technology, let's start coding, let's test it before it goes back. Any defects, let's fix it once again, retest it and send it. I lost audio. I'm sorry, I lost audio. Team. Okay, now we're back. Now, this whole process of where it is finally being tested and we deploy it. And this is done by DevOps. Deploy the product where? Get the product installed along with user documentation and required training for all consultants. That is the endpoint team. So this whole process of of what we did is what becomes your software development life cycle, right? Your software development life cycle is talking about how can we but as an organization, it is how well our process. Is my audio getting dropped? Did I lose audio, team? Now I'm back. Now you can hear me, everyone? Okay, great. If it breaks again, just let me know. Now comes the whole process. So the first is requirements. Let me take a different color. The first is we get to understand the requirement, the business requirement, the need, right? Then we kind of design a solution. This is all about documenting, saying how we want the requirements, technical, and so on. Once the design is done, this is design team, okay? We're calling more these things as designing than just FRD, FRS documentation. Then we're starting to do the development, or we can also call this as actual build. Okay. Once the development is done, the QA is coming into the picture, and then we are doing the end deployment to the end customer. This is your software development lifecycle. Gather the requirements, document them, design a solution, build it, which is the actual coding part, test it, deploy it. All right. Now comes the realities of how things can happen. I'll talk about shift left in a little bit, but let's look at this business model once again. And what were the high level requirements? Let's see. Consultant logs in, this is the one I'm seeing from 1 to 6. So login is necessary. Start to time and task management is necessary. Screenshots are necessary. And then stop the task is necessary. And then submit it for approval is necessary. There are about 6 different features, team. Now, all these requirements, I may break it down into 6 different features. Let's say these requirements. So team, I was talking about the fact that we broke the entire thing into 6 requirements, right? Login, start task and time, start task, time tracking, screenshots randomly, stop and submit. The reason it is important to break down the requirements is all about one concept now. What is our approach to doing this? Should it be one big bang, which is called typically as your entire waterfall model? There are cascading waterfalls, the different details, but I'm just going to put it as one big waterfall model where everything is done at one time, or one at a time, every week we release a few things. Now, it depends also on how many people I have access to who can deliver this. So either we're doing it waterfall or agile. Now you'll know the difference, team. Waterfall is basically saying that this entire thing is one deliverable for me. Either the whole project is completed or it is not. What is the downfall for it? The downfall typically is that it can take longer time for seeing the first product version. It may take 3 months. The other downfall to it is the fact that once you go towards the end of the product development, and let us say there are some changes, either because of testing or new requirements, because we already took time and market keeps moving on, at that time we have to do a lot of changes again. The other option is, why don't we go phase by phase, one after the other? Let us not do everything in one go. Let us start with the basic version. Let's release one, then let's release one more, let's release one. So this requirements then become your R1, R2, R3, and so on, version numbers. Okay. So we call each deployment as a different version. In the first version, let us say login credentials and all that, I will do it, let's say, later once we integrate it with something. But just to put a task and say start task, and then track time, and then stop. So 2, 3, and 5, we could be able to handle it. All right. Where am I? It's fine. Okay. There. So this release versions are nothing but what we want to release when. Okay. So at this time, I'm releasing this. In this next release, I'm going to be putting the other feature. The next release, I may put the other feature. Or I may say that, all these three, we're doing it in the same first release. Agile is all about, let us start with the minimal launchable product so the end user can start feeling things. We can then subtly keep making changes and deploying them every week or every fortnight or every 2-3 days. This whole process of how we develop applications is your SDLC. You want to do it as one big bang waterfall, saying that, okay, everything, let's do it at a time. Or the cascading waterfalls where, the whole project is broken down into fewer smaller projects. Agile is deploy as much as you can first, all tested and done, keep things small, keep things very easily handleable, and keep deploying them regularly. And all that we see today's world is about agility. It's the agile methodology that's become very popular. People have to develop and release applications quicker because the market is moving much faster. All right, great. So that basically is talking about waterfall agile, how we can develop. I will talk about regression testing, these releases, these versions, and all over and over again. We'll go at length. But there's one challenge that typically came up, and that is the fact that, hey, my QA is idle till the entire thing is developed. My qualifications team is sitting absolutely idle till the entire thing is developed, and right before it's deploying, we're like a toll gate, and we can't even pass it if there are defects. And if we pass the defects, users are unhappy. If we reject it and send it back to the developers are unhappy, users also unhappy because it's got delayed. So it becomes, which is first, quality or time? Should we be first time right, or should we do on time delivery? So these two words, team, remember them, FTR and OTD, first time right and on time delivery. is help us to track projects. They come under service level agreements. Okay, so going back to how do we then use quality assurance team a little bit more advanced, and then came the concept of shift left. We'll be saying that while requirements are being built, we will write test cases. We will start preparing our platform. While the design is going, we prepare our test data, we'll set up the environments and so on. Build is going on. We can further write maybe automation tests, try and integrate it with the build process. And as soon as it is ready for testing, once it comes from build to QA, we have very fairly utilized our time. And then together we can deploy. So what you're seeing in waterfall earlier was more where QA comes later. In today's agile world, the QA is there all through the process, right from requirements to deployment. And how can this QA team, which is the main toolkit to deployment, do their jobs better? And that is where it comes, where manual testing, where the tester knows the application functionalities very well, is a certified tester, can point out which is a defect and which is not, or automation testing, where we teach a tool like Selenium using a programming language like Java or Python and ask it to be able to perform the same task. That combination of being able to very accurately test these applications. There are never scenarios where it's 100% accurate, but even if you're getting to that 98, 99, whatever percentile or percentage you're looking at, your whole SDLC process is now becoming one integrated team. So no longer you'll see all QA engineers sitting in one side, all developers sitting in one side. No, you'll have about 3 developers, 2 QA, 1 BA, 1 DevOps, 1 DBA or shared DBA sitting together on a smaller project. And that is your agile work. So let me go back to our document here. Take the screenshot. Snipping tool. Just for reference so that I don't have to do it again. Cool. Okay, so there's one question. As per the understanding, QA teams write the test cases, they don't sit idle. How long will you write test cases? With the agile teams, just writing test cases is not enough. We're trying to write automation scenarios, we're trying to understand the entire thing, prepare whatever we can. When it comes, like app is ready for testing, then we are gonna bombard it with all that we prepare. So that involvement of QA team very early into the SDLC cycle has started only in the last decade or so. It was very waterfall centric in the early 2000s. So team, let me look at this document and I put a few things. We still haven't got to the process of manual testing and automation testing and so on, but primarily we've covered the basics of IT so far. What I'm going to do next is talk about building a simple HTML app that serves this purpose, but using HTML, at least the look and feel. We'll learn a lot about HTML and how things need to be organized and what we have that we need to do. What's the time now? It's about 10:15 team. Why don't we reconnect again? I don't know if it's going to be today or we'll have to push. I'm just looking at how many topics we have. I just need to do HTML a little bit more. That requires maybe an hour. Where is the first document? and then we need to get into programming. We need to also write a few test cases. This will take another 4 hours for me, at least the basics, getting it there. All right, let me schedule, and Venkat or someone will reach out if we're having third session today or just 2 sessions for now. I'm also looking at the number of audience and what time it is for them, because most of the audience are from the US. We expected a lot of people from India, but I don't think we have many from there. Any questions, team, before I end today's session? All right, team, great. I'll see you back mostly tomorrow. If I can get, I don't think I'll do another session today, team, because I want to do fresh on HTML, show you how we'll learn. So let's meet tomorrow at this time, at 8 a.m. IST. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye then. Bye.